Welcome back, everybody, to the suspension part of the build. We've gotten the back half pretty much, the major fabrication work done. We have to go underneath, but before I go underneath, I want to get the suspension pretty much squared away, as in, final iteration of kind of what I want. Now, what I did at first is, remember what I did is the front strut from the 4000, I just threw it in the 20 valve turbo assembly right here, hub assembly. This thing is, every single wheel on these cars, seeing how I have the largest amount of CV joint that I have, or CV shaft width, they're all, tons of negative camber. Got to get rid of it. It's, pretty much is going to be a road car, so I need adjustability. These things from Audi have virtually no adjustability. Just on the ball joint right here, goes back and forth. That's pretty much it, which is not the greatest thing in the world. This right here from the 91-200 turbo 20 valve was kind of simple because I could use, the half shaft from a later model 2000 A4 in here. But the bearing in here, and let me move this out of the way. This right here is the 5000 strut. Pretty much 86 and above. Small bearing inside here, the A4, early A4 bearing, 99 and before. A4 hub fits up, and you can also bolt up the A4 brakes. So when I need brakes for this thing, to get it on the road or just to get it moving across the ground, it's there. Now, what are we going to do to make this thing adjustable and to allow it to fit with the longer CV shafts and the wider track? Well, this is what I came up with. This right here is the other side of the 5000, or the other strut from the 5000. What it is I boxed in a section up here. I basically took everything off, cut it, and put this on. This right here is a Group A Cosworth coilover. Cosworth actually had Group N and Group A. Group N was a stub axle. Group A was the bolt through. And this is a very stout item. The only reason why I have them, I bought a box of them back in the day when people were giving them away. And hopefully I have enough to do the Sport Quattro and the A2, the whole thing. I'll use up all my spares, make everything work. I think I had to get some collars for them and stuff like that, but nothing really major. Will they handle fantastic? Who knows? They might really stink, but at least it gets me going. Now, to do this, there's a reason why I did it like this. Here, let me show you. This right here is the 4000 Quattro unit, pretty much the chassis that is being used on. So what this is we have this set up, and we have to increase this track at least by 2 inches. So if you take a look here, if I move it like that, and if I put bearing on bearing, this is pretty much 2 more inches in. It's really hard for me to show it to you, being one person here, but it took me a lot of measurements to try and figure out how this is going to be done. We also have to worry about the steering. I'm going to do the steering, one or two ways, not really sure which way. This right here is the Coupe GT steering rod arm. It's going to be welded onto the top of this, which is pretty much the same height as that other 4000 Quattro tie rod. Or I'm going to use this for the bigger tie rod end that came off of the Jetta, which will also go right on here. And I might invert it. I'm not really sure. Whichever way I can make it work, I'll make it work. I can't do anything until I put the struts back on. I ordered the bearings for them, just concentric 3/4 bearings, just to fit it up inside there. I got to press the hub and put the brakes, make sure that's all set up. But let's go through building the other one. Oh, and one other thing, to show you what, you're probably sitting there going, well, what did Audi actually do in the Group B cars? I'll show you. This right here is a Group B strut. It came out of Bruno Kreibach's A2. He gave it to me. I'm not sure where he crashed. I think it was, I think it might have been SDPR. I can't remember. But this is, he couldn't use it. I know it's broken all through here and cracked, and it's a wall ornament at this point. But this is what an original Group B strut looks like. This is where the collars go, this is where the cap goes, and all the innards went inside and slide up and down. I remember the seal kits were like $700 or $800. They were just ridiculous. But I just thought I'd show that to you. It's all aluminum, it's relatively light. them like the stock suspension. So let's get on to making this, and we'll just get it all done, you know. And I'm going to do everything at the same time, just to cut everything up at the same time, you know. Easier that way. Once you get the blade out, you're all done. First step of the process, let's cut the tube off. Next thing, we have to mark and scribe where everything's going to be so we can cut it back up, or so we can cut and fold it to where we want. This is what I came up with. I measured everything, and seeing how I was going to do all the other struts, I'm trying to make them as the same as possible across the board. And I'll adjust them, you know, when it comes to that point. What I'm doing is I found this, I measured it all out, and then I went into the pile and found a plate that's the same measurement that I came up with. Pretty much right there is where I want it. And I want it I want it, you know, right to the sides, right there. That is our first scribe to bend it in. Now we need to fold these things back out. Where do we want to do that? Same thing. I did all my measurements. Then I found a piece of metal. That was the same as my measurements. Go right on that line. Now we're going to scribe these lines. This line is going to go in. This line is going to be bent back out to make it basically a parallelogram. It'll go like this, down, and over, pretty much. Let me do the other side. When you scribe these things, you want to cut down as far into here so it allows it to bend, but you don't want to go all the way through. That's the main thing. Anything where there's a curvature, you want to cut through. Anything on a straight line, you don't, because you want it to stay there. So it's a lot less fabricating and welding and setting up later. So let me just scribe those up, and we'll bend them in. Now that we got this thing scribed up, before we start bending, and we'll have a tight area, first thing is you should grind off as much as you can to clean out the metal for the internal support structure. All grinded up, all scribed. Went through my pile again to find out, in order to make all the struts, to make it easiest as I can possibly do it, what I did was I found another piece of metal. This is the metal that I used to chop up and make the backside support brace. This came from a barn door. It's the track system. But it came from a 1960s barn door, and the steel is really, really good. But that's the exact width that we need. So what we have to do now, pound this down and basically bring it down and bring it out. Yeah, looks pretty good. Now I have, let me see, 6 more to do. Let me pull the struts out of the other cars. I'm just going to do that quickly. Cut those out, cut those up, so I can start making all the bits and pieces for them in one shot. I don't want to do it. I want to have, seeing I have to grind it out with the cutters, I'm going to cut them all in one shot. So that's what I'm going to do. I hate those heavy pieces of shit. 1000 Quattro, which is the same stuff that's over there. This came off the front of the Sport project, and this is the rear 4000 Quattro. Take a look. They're virtually identical. And it's just, that's the reason why the Quattros had the same drive shafts front and rear, you know, when they first started out. And they had the same ball, I think they had the same ball joints too. For the bottom ball joints. But let me got the fresh cutting wheel on. Let's zip this stuff out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, basically 7 discs. Ah, feel terrible. Well, now that we got those things sorted out, we'll have to start, we'll measure everything, start scribing, and scribe every one and just do it all in, how can we put this? Do it all in a good manufacturing process, all right? Back at it. Seeing how after I cut that stuff, went up, just cleaned up a little bit and got a cup of coffee, you know? As you can see, it's cold down here and it's steaming right away. Now, the next thing, we got to build the adjuster. What we have to do is, first thing, these things have that bar right here, which is, what was it, 1.25 inches by 1.25 inches, pretty much, you know. All we're doing is taking a notch out of this. And we're going to keep it like this, where the open end points outward, because we need to actually get in there and weld. Because if it's down like this, we can't really weld it, it's really hard. This way we can weld our inner support structure to the actual plate, or actual, whatever you call this thing, square. All right. Let me mark this, and I'm going to quickly cut it, and we'll start marking everything up. Now I have this block right here and here. This is set to its furthest amount of camber offset this way, and I wanted to bring it as far, because this is, I want more going this way anyway. So what I did was I pushed it up. This is where the bolt is right there. I'm going to give a little bit of clearance, and it's pretty much dead center in there, and I got to tack that, and then I got to tack the bolt, then I can pull this off and weld it up. Same thing. Set this thing to the absolute max amount of camber we want out this way. That'll give us room just in case we need to bring it in that way. So let's tack that up. Then we're going to weld this sucker right on up. Let's check it out. Here's the basic assembly. There, this is the compression sleeve. This is a sleeve to stop the compression from when the bolts are together, and this is a sleeve to stop the compression when the bolts are there. That is all set up. Now we have to weld everything around. This is the reason why I ground all the insides prior to me, you know, tamping it down. Grind that all over, and I'm going to probably, what I'm going to do is make the holes ovals, so when you put the bolt in, it'll automatically slide in really quick. That way, we'll get this all squared away. Then we have to weld this, weld these right here. Same thing on the same thing on the other. This just gives us stability. We have to grind this weld right here. We're going to have to grind down because the plate's so close to the actual side. But this is pretty much it. Now you can make these for anything you want, whether it's going to be a Subaru pattern, which I probably would. If I didn't have the stuff that I have, I would go with a Subaru because there's just so many options. Plain and simple, just options. But let me get onto the welder. I'm going to weld the rest of this up, and we're going to get this all done. We're at the point now we have to build structure into this. We have to make this a total unit at this point. We have the strut. Tons of adjustability. But now we got to build the strength into the actual hub assembly. Right now it's just bent, it's open, it'd collapse if you don't weld. Even if you welded it, I have a feeling that, you know, because you have an open space right here, it would collapse within itself. So we got to close that space. Now what we're going to do on this is we're not going to use this metal. We're just going to cut down here at an angle, you know, pretty much just find out where the strut is and just go from here to here. Just eyeball it, you know. That way this thing will make a triangular structure. I'll cut this steel, put this into the strut housing and weld it all in. And I'm also going to weld the top of this steel onto that bushing right there. And once I weld it onto the bushing, the load transfer from this bolt to the bottom part or to the entire structure of the hub assembly will be absorbed there. The top part I will box in after I get it fully welded. And I will box in the front also. This right here, I will box that all in. should work. Let's give it a shot. As you can see, it's going to be welded right to this pin right here, or the cross pin. What I first got to do is get in there with a MIG and weld all around it. So I can, this is really no structural stability, but the more I weld in there, kind of the better it's going to be. So let me just start welding inside here and get the MIG gun in there, and then we'll weld this plate on, finish up the other stuff, do that, and we're all done. See, it's going to go right there. There's going to be plenty of meat. Just have to grind that stuff off clean. There's going to be plenty of meat to weld to. We have to plate this side in. I just took the rest of that metal off of that U-channel. Just pounded down this side. It's going to fit right there. Let me clean it up with a grinder, and we will weld it. Piece is going to go right here. Before I do that, I got to weld the inside as much as I can over here to get this block stabilized. Here's the plate that we have to weld in and make just a box section. What I want to do is I took a piece of this spare metal that I didn't cut out, I'm using a magnet, and it's going to go right in there. So I can basically, I just want to get it flush so I can tack around it. After I tack around it, I'm going to build another step right here, and it should all be good. Now that this is all tacked in, I got to put my real welding gloves on instead of these, and we're going to weld up the rest of it. I'm going to do that one just because it's going to be the same exact thing. Same exact thing to do. But let me put my other gloves on, and because these things will just, it goes right through. Ooh, what up? I don't think that's going anywhere. What a hillbilly I am. I gotta do the other one. Here it is. Front strut. Oops, still a little warm. Rear strut, basically identical. All the cosworth coilovers will all fit in here. Whether they're 50 mil inserts, alpha inserts, or they're 41 mil inserts, that's what I built it for. And I'm probably gonna have to take the grinder and grind a little bit more, and whatever. It's all part of the deal. I got 5 more to do. I'll do it off camera. Just want to say, let's say, this is for off-road use, only use at own risk. I think that's the liability thing that I have to say, because don't believe me, I'm just a hillbilly stuck out here in New Hampshire. What do I know? All I got is a welder and a grinder. We should end this episode by saying thank you very much for showing up. The next episode is going to be interesting because I got to do a lot of measurements before I do it. The rear is going to be different than the front, trying to make the control arms fit these things. I have an idea. I'm going to film it. It might be successful. Then again, it might be an utter failure at the end. And then if it is, you're not going to see it and you'll see something different. Hopefully it's going to work. It's kind of interesting the way I'm going to do it. It's just different on how I'm going to do it. So other than that, thank you very much for hanging out. I really appreciate you watching the videos. And remember, if you see anybody who's just doing some car work, support them. You know, even if they're not doing the greatest thing, they're doing it. That's all that matters. You know, you can do it. I am nothing special. I'm just a hillbilly with a grinder and a welder, and that's it. You know, and what can I say? Thank you very much for showing up. And remember, just build yourself whatever you want to do, because you can do it. Thanks. Bye.